Hello, I'm Christina Cote, and for those who don't already know me, I'm a Title I Education Programs Professional with the Nevada Department of Education. Today I'll be presenting to you the recent Federal Consolidated Application ePAGE system design changes that will be launching in the upcoming 2019-20 school year. This short module will be focused on the Title I Part A Grant Application ePAGE enhancements. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the module learning objectives. By the end of this training section, you should be able to identify and navigate the new feature changes to the following Title I Part A ePAGE sections of the Consolidated Application. Specifically, we will be reviewing the school eligibility page enhancements, non-public school page, set-aside page data enhancements, and the new annual reporting information page. This module will follow a general format. First, I'll summarize the system interface changes for each of the enhancements listed on the slide. Then I will pull up the ePAGE testing environment and show you what the new pages look like live. So let's go ahead and get started. The Title I eligibility page is probably familiar to most of you. It captures specific school enrollment and poverty data, as well as what program services, whether it be a school-wide program or a targeted assistance program, have been identified for those served schools. Historically, districts inserted this data manually, but we are now moving much of this manual data entry and will now be using ePage's load request feature used at many other states across the nation to populate this data. School FRL and enrollment data will be uploaded through this process prior to the allocation upload process for the new fiscal year. Data for CEP, or Community Eligible Provisions Identified Schools, which is identified by the Department of Agriculture in the prior year, will also be uploaded in a similar process, as well as state school designations and star ratings. School designations and star ratings will be pushed in a similar fashion, but probably a little bit later in the school year. Generally, that happens sometime in the fall, around September, once the NSPF results are released. The new non-public service school page has also been refined a bit. There are now 4 core page elements that we've already added, and as well as a read-only summary page that pulls in the private school data from all federal grants in the Consolidated Application that provide equitable services to private schools. For districts who don't serve non-public schools, users will just continue with the same process and select the non-applicable box on that page. However, if your district does serve non-public students through the consultation process, please refer to Module number 2 for further guidance. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this page when I demonstrate it live. If you do need to have some more navigational assistance for the non-public service page, again, please review the Module number 2, which is specifically targeted towards that page. The set-aside page. We've included some additional summary data fields to improve fiscal transparency and to remove manual calculations. 2 additional fields have been included on the Title I Part A set-aside page. The first one is the first field that totals all the district set-asides at the bottom of the page, which would include your initial set-asides plus the required, like parent involvement, equitable services, and optional district set-asides. The second field provides a percentage of the district set-aside totals against the total grant allocation. Remember, Title I-A is built on the concept of operating programs in eligible served schools. The purpose of Title I-A funding is to assist schools in meeting the educational goals of low-income students and to provide all children significant opportunity to receive a fair, equitable, and high-quality education and to close educational achievement gaps. For example, the state Title I budget at the state level only reserves about 1% for SEA administration, so to provide for salaries and such for support personnel who help districts. The optional district set-aside should also be based on the district's performance plan and executed at the district level and not allocated and set aside on a grant basis. In other words, it is important to note that when determining district-wide set-asides, that the district has a well-crafted district-wide program plan that incorporates the expenditure according to clear criteria to overcome unintentionally serving schools out of rank order due to having schools with lower rates of poverty receiving a higher per pupil amount than schools with a higher amount of poverty. For example, district personnel, such as an academic coach, should be supporting all identified served Title I schools in that district. If an academic coach is included in a set-aside but is only working in select schools, then expenditures for this position should be allocated to the appropriate schools, not as an LEA set-aside. The Assurances section. Assurance changes for FY20 were covered previously in Module number 1. Title I program-specific assurances have been refined. Now, global-wide assurances, meaning those that span across all federal consolidated programs, have been removed from the Title I grant application page. Global federal assurances will now be acknowledged at the bottom of the application and by submission of the consolidated application in ePAGE. However, assurances specific to the Title I grant will be identified in the assurances section of the Title I grant. Districts just need to review the Title I provisions outlined on that page and select the appropriate response of yes, no, or not applicable from the drop-down menu. I'll show you that example in the testing environment here in a minute. We've included a new page, a new section called the Annual Reporting Information section. The new Annual Reporting Information page was designed to collect data in a more efficient manner. The Early Childhood section may look familiar to districts who use Title I funding to support pre-K early childhood programs, as previously this data was collected via a spreadsheet through the eNote desktop monitoring. The same data is requested, but now the state will be able to run a consolidated report through ePAGE, which will collect the data for all districts to support pre-K and then distribute that data to requesting national and state organizations. The district-wide instruction and support data section now compiles Title I funded employee-related data, which is differentiated by role type. And then the third section is the EdFacts data. EdFacts data is an annual collection of data that you're probably familiar with. It will now be included in ePAGE as part of the application. Data the district enters should reflect prior year information. This data will then be compiled and forwarded to USDOE annually. Further guidance for districts is available in the NDE resources section of ePAGE and will also be posted up on our website here shortly. Lastly, I wanted to provide some information on pilot awareness, a couple things that you may encounter if you're not part of the pilot. The NDE is launching a pilot section entitled District Consolidated Plan, which includes 4 pages. These sections are only required of the identified pilot districts, which are Nye, Douglas, and Washoe at this time. If you work in a district not identified as part of this pilot, you may see additional warning messages under the validation review process upon submission. If the warnings are related to the pilot enhancements or pilot sections, you can just simply ignore them. Districts should always address errors that are identified in the validation column before attempting to submit. The ePAGE system will not allow users to submit if errors are present, so make sure that those are corrected before you submit. Besides the District Consolidated Plan section I previously mentioned, there is one other area that may look unfamiliar to non-piloted districts. And that is the SEA Area of Critical Need Budget meta tag. When districts go to complete their budgets this year, you may see a new meta tag drop-down option. This new feature is only required of the piloted districts, Nye, Douglas, and Washoe at this time. If you are not one of those 3 districts, you can go ahead and ignore that additional meta tag drop-down in the budget. All right, so now that we've had an overview of the new enhancements in the Title I grant of this consolidated application, let's take a quick peek at these new features in the live environment. Once the federal consolidated application has been pushed into the production site, you too can use this module as a helpful guide to help navigate to the enhancements we demonstrate. I'm going to go ahead and take a second here and change my screen so that you can see a testing environment. All right, so this is the newest FY20 application, what it looks like. It looks pretty familiar at the first glance. As I mentioned before, we do have a new section for that pilot, which is called District Consolidated Plan. It includes 4 new pages. If you're not Nye, Washoe, or Douglas, you can ignore this section altogether. Those districts who are in the pilot will receive additional training at a later time. But we're going to focus on the Title 1A grant part of the Consolidated Application. And specifically, the first changes was a school eligibility page. So I'm going to click on that so you can see what that looks like live. So as I mentioned, the adjusted enrollment information and low-income students, you can see now have been grayed out, where previously they were open edit fields as you were able to insert your own data in the previous years. Now this information will be uploaded by the state, both for the FRL and enrollment information, as well as any CEP adjustments. Additionally, we have a school designation to the very right of the table and star rating column, which will also be uploaded by the state, as I mentioned, in the fall once the NSPF star designations and school designations have been publicly released. So those are the changes to the school eligibility page. I'm going to go back to the sections and look briefly at the non-public private school page. There you go, non-public school services. The new non-public school services page has had some minor tweaks in a strategic manner to help our ombudsman. If you do not have any schools, you're going to click that non-applicable section. So if you have no schools that are no children from low-income families presently residing and participating in schools that have equitable services, you can just click that non-applicable checkbox as you normally would. Non-participating schools is very similar to the process as you have had in the past, just identifying the schools and the appropriate status, either as non-participating or non-responsive. Participating schools, you would include the schools, as well as we have a new pooling section, which I will review. You can review in the other module I mentioned, module number 2, along with all the other detail. And then the third section is a couple narratives if you have an inter-district agreement and or MOU. Again, for further navigational information and detail, please refer to module number 2. Go back to the sections again, and now we're going to look at the new set-aside. So the new set-aside page for where the district set-asides are located still look very similar. We have the initial, the required, and the optional set-asides, but we have added a couple new non-editable data fields at the bottom, and that's because this was a manual process. So at the bottom now, you'll see that there is a total set-asides field right here that will add all the set-asides for the district, which would include the initial, required, and optional, and then a background calculation of the percentage of that allocation, that set-aside allocation. So you can see in this case, this district has 5.98% of their total Title I funding going to set-asides. And it's just basically data information. And that's it for the set-aside page. And then we're going to look at the new annual reporting information, which is second to the last section or page of the Title I section. So the annual reporting information page is comprised of 3 main sections. The early childhood section, so if you're a district that uses Title I funds to serve pre-K and early childhood programs, you would complete this information as you would have done in the annual eNote desktop monitoring. If it is not applicable to your district, you're just going to click that not applicable box and you can see everything grayed out. The second section is district-wide instruction and support staff. So basically for each position listed, you're just going to put the head count and how many of those are full-time employees. If you see a role that has not been identified in this list, you're just going to add a row at the bottom and identify that new role and fill out the appropriate corresponding fields. And then the last section is the EdFax performance data. This is something that your district's probably also familiar with. It's been a manual process in the past where districts would complete this information on a spreadsheet and submit it back to the state. Now we're including it into ePAGE so that reports can be pulled down and compiled along with other district information, because it is sent out to the US DOE once a year. This information should be completed from prior year's data. And if you have any, if you need the detailed guidance document, if you go to the NDE resources on the left-hand menu bar, that information will be uploaded there, as well as on our website here shortly. All right. So that's it for our live demo. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to our presentation. So that's the end of this module. Hopefully you've achieved the module objectives of being able to identify and navigate this new school eligibility page enhancements, the non-public school page enhancements. Again, if you need further detail, please refer to module number 2. Understanding the new set-aside data page data enhancements with the new calculations fields, and the new annual reporting information page. Thank you for reviewing the self-paced module. We have created other short training modules around the Consolidated Application ePAGE changes that you can also review if they're applicable. If you have any further questions with regards to the new enhancements, please reach out to the educational programs professional or grants analyst assigned to your district based on the applicable federal grant. Thank you so much and have a fantastic day.